Hello, everyone. Hopefully, you can hear us and see us. We are here and we're ready to talk about technology.
I don't know. I don't know. We should be hopeful that they can see us.
I think they can see us.
I feel like it's a side effect. It's
Sadly, you can see us.
exactly. That's how I'm feeling this week.
Where's my mic? There it is.
Okay. Let's see. Get my recorder up. All right. I am now recording.
I'm now recording.
3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Windows Central Podcast, episode 319 for July 14th, 2023. Hey everyone, Dean and Rubino here, joining Zach Bowden for another exciting episode of the Windows Central Podcast. And, well, we're in the slow summer days, so we don't actually have a ton of stuff to talk about this week, although some big news still. For reference, we were all involved with Prime Day this week, which I know nobody here probably cares about, but it sucked up a huge portion of our existence this week, so that's where we've been. Anyway, we will be talking about, though, the new Windows 11 23H2 update is confirmed, and Zach's going to walk us through that, what it means. Windows 11 Canary Insider builds are back, and what's more important here, of course, is some new features and stuff that's been coming. I don't know if Zach wants to share his bad news that he just heard.
No, not yet.
Okay, so there's some bad news to look forward to, but not today. So that's all right. You can enjoy your weekends. Don't worry, it's not like bad news, but it's fine. And then finally, the Xbox versus FTC drama and frustration. A lot of news happening around that. We didn't talk about it last week, but this is, of course, the Xbox and Microsoft trying to buy Activision Blizzard King and the back and forth that's been going on there. You will go through that, what it means, and what happened to the FTC this week. And then we'll probably do Thing of the Week, and if anything else that happens. And there could be other stuff we missed. It's been, like I said, a whirlwind week. I think we're all kind of brain dead now. But if we think of any other stories, of course, we'll make sure to bring that up. Zach, how are you doing on this fine Friday?
Tired.
Yeah. And that's that.
That's that, yeah.
Podcast. Good enough. Well, let's just get into the news then. What's happening with this Windows 11 23H2 update? It being confirmed. What does it mean, and what's going on with these updates?
So it being confirmed, it's kind of something we already knew was coming. You know, they do an annual release every year. Every year, the version number increments in a format that we understand. So 23H2 as a thing isn't a surprise, but Microsoft has announced that the 23H2 release that will be coming in the fall will be delivered via the enablement package method. Now, again, this is stuff, if you've been listening to this podcast, you likely already sort of know we've been talking about this for a bit. And this, of course, ties back to the new development cycle Microsoft is sort of following for Windows going forward. Started last year. They're going back to a new major version of the Windows platform every 3 years. And considering Windows 11 launched in 2021, that means we're not due a new version of the Windows platform until 2024. So this year's update will be based on the last version of Windows 11, which was version 22H2. So the enablement package method, there's quite a few upsides to it. The main one being the download and install process is quite seamless. It installs just like a monthly security update. There's not much to it. The updates are also smaller as a result, so you don't have to spend hours downloading things if you have a slow internet connection. They're usually maybe a few hundred megabytes versus, you know, a few gigabytes for a full OS release, as I'd like to call it. But yes, so that is confirmed. Microsoft confirmed it this week themselves that version 23H2 will be an enablement package. Now, they didn't say when it's coming, just that it will be coming in the fall. If history is to repeat itself, we can likely expect to see this roll out in September, October timeframe. And a few people have asked me, so does this count as moment 4, or is there a moment 4 after this? And I don't actually know the answer to that. I think 23H2 is also moment 4, but whether or not they do more moments after 23H2, which I assume they will. I don't know if the one after 23H2 will also be technically moment 4, or if that will be moment 5. I genuinely don't know. But ideally, the sort of delivery method for these updates are all the same. All of the moment updates we've had this year, and now the upcoming 23H2 release, will more or less be delivered in an identical way, that being through Windows Update as a servicing style patch. So it gets a little bit fuzzy as to what counts as a moment and what counts as a feature update. Internally, I think Microsoft doesn't care. I think the only reason why this one gets the designation of version 23H2 is because it's a jumping on point, or rather, I guess, milestone for support cycles. Obviously, Windows and support cycles go hand in hand. Enterprise is very interested in that. Not only that, considering the moment updates so far have been optional for enterprises, 23H2 becomes a moment, pardon the pun, where Microsoft says, okay, everything we released on Windows 11 22H2 through moments are now on by default, and you can't turn them off with 23H2. So if an enterprise wants to upgrade to 23H2, they can do that, but they can no longer say no to all of the enhancements that have been added over the last 12 months or however long it's been. So that's what 23H2 serves. It serves as a support cycle jump on or jump off point, as well as a moment for Microsoft to announce new features, some big new features for Windows users, including, we believe, Windows Copilot will be part of this. I saw a few people speculating that Copilot, considering this is now an enablement package, that means it's going to be a smaller update, and therefore things like Copilot and the new File Explorer can't be here. That's not how that works anymore. Just because things are enablement packages or servicing style releases doesn't mean we can't have big new features with them. The big OS upgrades are now reserved for mainly new versions of the Windows platform, and since we're going back to one of those releases for Windows Client every 3 years, that's no longer going to be something we have to worry about all of the time. Most feature updates in the fall will now more or less be in enablement packages rather than full-blown new releases, because, like I said, we're not getting new platforms every year now. We're getting them once every 3 years. So that's that. I'm still expecting things like Windows Copilot and the new Windows File Explorer, the RGB built-in customization tools in Windows settings, plus a bunch of other quality of life improvements to make their way into the 23H2 release. Once again, will that be day one, or will that be in a moment shortly after it, just like how 22H2 had the initial release, and then a month later they got tabs in File Explorer? That remains to be seen, but it will be, to my knowledge, towards the end of this year is when we're expecting Copilot and new File Explorer stuff to start shipping. So I think we can all count it as 23H2. Dan, did you understand any of that?
Some of it. Yeah, I mean, I think the expectation here would be any big news will come in October. October is Microsoft month, where they like to unveil new stuff in Windows, as well as Surface, of course, and sort of have, but usually not at the same event, right? Usually the Windows stuff comes earlier, like a week or two. They get that out of the way, and then they'll have a Surface event where they'll just talk about the hardware, implication being that that new hardware is going to ship with that new version of Windows. And then we'll probably see, like, we're expecting Surface Laptop Studio 2 will probably, I guarantee you, have Copilot on the press images, right?
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up. I am starting to hear that, this fall's Surface lineup will sort of push that AI bandwagon and be like, hey, these devices are AI optimized, and they'll be talking a bit about, obviously, Copilot and Windows Studio Effects and all that other stuff that Windows is already doing in the AI space. But yeah, you're totally right that's going to be certainly part of this fall's push as a product. Copilot. Internally, if you're a team that isn't working on something that integrates AI, you're on the chopping block. So everybody needs to be working on AI at Microsoft now, and so yeah, that's not a surprise to hear, I don't think.
I just came up with a funny idea for an article we should do, but I don't know if I want to give the idea on this podcast.
Okay.
But actually, maybe we could solicit ideas from people. What would be the top 10 funniest Microsoft products and apps that don't need AI? That would be funny if they got it. Just to try and think which ones they could shoehorn it into. That could be a fun
I have heard
post.
that they're planning to bring AI to Xbox, but I don't know how. Like, what's the point?
Yeah, so, again, like, the terminology here is interesting, right? AI has a lot of subcomponents to it. One of those is machine learning. Machine learning is simply optimized algorithms you can think of, right? So I could see, where I would want to see it on Xbox isn't necessarily like a Copilot. Although there could be kind of like a Copilot-ish thing, but what would be backing it is an algorithm that is simply about discovery of games, right? So this is something that I like that Steam does, Valve, So if you play a bunch of games on Valve on Steam, right? You download them, you play them, and it logs your hours, right? And then, of course, you can rate the game and all that kind of stuff. But then what ends up happening is Steam recommends games based on things you've played and liked before, or also things that your friends are playing, right? And they do a pretty good job of it. Now, they almost have a tougher job because the amount of games that come to Steam is, I don't know, the times how much greater it is than Xbox, but it's a lot, right? Because anyone could put a game on Steam, and there's a lot of indie stuff out there that like most of us will never even hear of. But sometimes that's where you find these cool little gem games, right? Vampire Survivors is a great example of that. It's still $3.99, right? And it's this great game that kind of came out of nowhere from, I don't think, a studio that's well known. If I recall correctly, it was done by a guy who used to develop slot machines in Las Vegas or something like that. But like those little kind of games that kind of come out of nowhere are just cool for discovery. And what's really needed is it's the same with Amazon when you buy something. Hey, you bought this. Would you like that? And that's to refine that and improve that even more on Xbox, combined with Game Pass, where you can then like just download the game instantly, I think is going to be kind of where it would benefit from. I'm not sure what else they could do with it in terms of like, would it need to be like a Cortana thing? I don't know. I'm sure there's ways they can do that, like maybe, saving clips automatically. Like it would be cool if somehow AI or machine learning, whatever you want to call it, could know you did something amazing. Like actually, like tying it to an achievement unlocked, right? A lot of times you achieve something that's maybe very difficult to do, or it's like to have it auto record that and document it and auto record your achievements, I think would be kind of neat. And then you can delete them, of course, if you don't want them. But those would be kind of cool to share instead of just being like, oh, I just got my achievement. There it is, right? To show that the scene that you did it in, I think it would be kind of fun. I know I always kind of forget even how, I don't play Xbox very much anymore. But even on PC, like I even forget how, I think, what do? You double tap the Xbox icon or something? I forgot even how to like, like you got to remember to do that. And it's just like, even like an analogy to this is like my Tesla, right? If someone cuts me off or is erratically driving, like I could double tap something on my steering wheel or the icon on the dash to record the last like 30 seconds, just like how it works kind of on Xbox, and I can save it in case I want to like report them or whatever. If I don't remember to do that because I'm so in the moment that someone just cut me off, maybe I'm mad, I'm hot, like if I don't do that, then it's like I forget to. And I feel like the same way with achievements, sometimes that happens. Or forget the achievement stuff. If you just did something like ridiculously awesome, right, that'd be kind of neat to do. But that gets pretty advanced, I think.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see how they could pull that off, a feature that can analyze what you're doing and then be like, oh, that was cool, screenshot, or clip it, or whatever it's called. But yeah, no, that's a good example, I guess, of some of the ways that could bring AI to Xbox. But you're right, like, well, loads of other things at Microsoft that kind of probably don't need AI, that are probably going to get AI of some kind. And, obviously, my biggest interest is Windows stuff, and obviously we've got the Windows Copilot coming, but I've said it before, that's just the start, really. And
sure.
that's still very much a user inputted sort of AI functionality. It's a Copilot, it assists you, whereas what Dan was talking about there is more sort of automatic AI, contextual awareness AI that Copilot really isn't yet, but I'm sure it can become. Or Windows itself, Microsoft could build the Windows UI or Windows 12 UI, Windows 13 UI, whatever, to be more contextually aware using AI, things like being able to analyze text in an app and presenting quick start, jump menus and whatnot in, say, the start menu or in your context menu for jumping into a project with the sort of criteria outlaid in a sentence or whatever, like stuff like that. That's going to be where AI really becomes useful. Also, we've already seen it in regards to the Windows Studio effects using AI to enhance camera and microphone stuff. That could also extend to other peripherals and stuff in the future as well. There's so many avenues for Microsoft to sort of explore with AI as an umbrella term within Windows, not just Copilot. Copilot, in my opinion, I think Copilot's the most boring aspect of AI. It's the easiest one to show off, I think, at least right now.
Fruit.
Yeah, but as this AI stuff gets more advanced and software starts working for you automatically, that's when it starts getting interesting, I think.
I mean, it's even kind of this is the small quality of life improvements that we'll see that are not features that like are banner like you can't run a commercial on it almost, but
Yeah.
like even in Gmail, right? Like we have to use Gmail for work, but sometimes I don't know if you notice, like it'll remind you, be like, hey, you should respond to this email from 5 days ago.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's cool. I did totally forget about that. It pushes it up into your inbox. It kind of highlights it. Like those little things, trying to proactively manage your digital life because we're so like stressed. Yeah, I mean, even before this podcast, I was talking about, oh my God, I was supposed to order dog food and I was going to have it online so I could deliver it. Today they do same day, but it's just like, it would be cool if computers and all this stuff can basically proactively start doing that stuff for you. I think we're still quite a ways from that, but that is kind of where all this stuff is heading. And that isn't going to be some banner feature. It's not going to be something you could display. You're right. Copilot, something you can visually show off and it looks cool, where all of this other stuff is, even like the small things, right? Like being able to detect that numbers typed in any thing in Windows, those numbers, if they're a phone number, can be then acted upon. Or a date, say like 3 p.m. on Friday, June 22nd, right? To be able to see that, and you're starting to see this in Android too, right? And then have it auto underlined, and then when you click it, add to calendar, set reminder. Like that stuff is so much more important and impressive to get into our daily lives, because I don't know about you, but like even just setting up or a calendar or something like that, it's like, okay, now I gotta go open my calendar app, hit the plus thing, I gotta start typing in information. Wait, what time was it? Or go back to the window. Is there a phone number? Put that in there. And for me, that stuff is way more interesting, but it's also way less exciting to talk about, right? But it's those little things that are going to make all computer interaction, I think, way more interesting.
Yeah, I fully agree. So on that subject, we should briefly move on to the insider stuff of the week. Not too much to report here. The Canary Channel Canary, that finally got an actual build worth talking about. But before we get to that, there was also a build for the beta channel this week, build 22631, and as has been the case the last few weeks, this is just more stuff trickling down from the dev channel. So we have the new gallery stuff and File Explorer making its way to the beta channel, the ability to add phone photos through the File Explorer as well, and a couple of minor additions as well. They've also updated the versioning number to 23H2, which is unsurprising. This is the beta channel is currently testing basically the 23H2 update as it's being shaped, so that's why they've updated that. And I'm not actually entirely sure when it's supposed to be finalized. I'm guessing probably late August or early September. I don't know, but we've still got a little while to go yet for them to add all the stuff in, or a number of the stuff in the dev channel, into beta for it to be shaped and sort of packaged as the full feature update. And then moving on to the Canary Channel, yes, build 25905 rolled out, and this is significant because it's been a while since the Canary Channel got a build. We sort of joked in the last couple of podcasts that, if you're in the Canary Channel, you're really being shafted because you weren't getting anything. The dev channel was getting all this new stuff, and the Canary Channel was just sort of hanging out on some empty builds for whatever reason. The reason for it, of course, was, unfortunately, when Microsoft announced the Canary Channel as a thing and sort of told everybody to move to dev, it was around the time that the Zinc platform release was being finalized. So although Canary was supposed to be this sort of bleeding edge platform ready, platform forward looking, it changes stuff, unstable, this, that, and the other, just after they announced the new Canary Channel, that channel was moved on to a stable, quite literally stable branch, because it needed to test the Zinc platform release, which was coming up to an RTM milestone, so they needed to test the stable code for whichever products are getting a Zinc platform release. Client isn't. It would have been originally, but since we've just discussed Windows moving back to a 3-year release cycle for client, Zinc is no longer a client release. I believe it's launching for Xbox and something else. I can't remember. Maybe server or some additional server. I don't remember. It doesn't really matter. But that's what Canary was testing, basically the code base, the platform for Zinc. So it was basically stable stuff, and that's why it wasn't getting any features. But now, after 4 or 5 weeks, maybe 6 weeks, it's moved back into the actual active development channel, RS_pre-release. So now the Canary Channel can start being what it was intended to be. This sort of ring or channel for more unstable platform code, forward-looking things. And, this first build here does have some kernel-related stuff. So Rust is now in the Windows kernel, starting with this build. And I'll read word for word what they've said here because I don't know what any of this means. Rust offers advantages in reliability and security over traditional programs written in C and C++. This preview shipped with an early implementation of critical kernel features in safe Rust. Specifically, Win32k base _rs.sys contains a new implementation of GDI region. While this is a small trial, we'll continue to increase usage of Rust in the kernel. Stay tuned. So things like that is exactly what this channel is going to be testing, all in the sort of name of the next major version of Windows, which is coming, as we've mentioned, in the second half of 2024. Not only that, they've also announced, they announced this before, but it's now in the build, starting with this Canary Channel build. ARM32 UWP app support is being pulled out of the operating system. Starting with this insider preview build, we have removed support for ARM32 UWP applications from Windows and ARM, as documented. After the OS upgrade, any installed ARM32 applications will no longer launch on your device. They're doing this for a number of reasons. One, I think is probably security related, right? ARM32 is not really used anymore, I don't think, at least not on any sort of PC or phone platforms. ARM32 was, of course, what Microsoft opted to use when they first ventured into the world of Windows and ARM using the Surface RT and Windows RT in general. That was an ARM32 platform. Windows Phone, Windows 10 Mobile was also an ARM32 endeavor. Obviously, ARM32 hasn't really gone anywhere since then, so they're now finally pulling it out in favor of ARM64. So if you are a developer who had an ARM32 app and you were still maintaining that, what are you doing? Recompile for ARM64, because otherwise future versions of Windows are not going to run your app. And then there's some other stuff. The other notable thing about this build is that it actually brought over a bunch of stuff that was in the dev channel, brought forward into this Canary channel. So things like, let's see here, the new dev drive stuff, backup and restore improvements, dynamic lighting, Windows App SDK version of the File Explorer and Gallery. All of that stuff has been brought forward. Not everything though. Windows Copilot is still missing from this build, but that's going to be the nature, right? As new features are developed for the in-market version of Windows, they will almost certainly always make their way to dev first, and then they're ported forward to Canary and back to beta, and that's just how Windows development's going right now. Canary is quite literally only going to be focusing, for now at least, primarily on platform level changes for vNext, and so any features that it gets will be for Windows 11 being brought forward. So hopefully that's understandable. But the other thing that's actually new in this build and not in the dev channel yet is emoji, to my knowledge, and by emoji. Yeah. I mean that 3D emoji. If you remember, many years ago now, it feels like Microsoft announced Fluent emoji, and when they announced them, they were these sort of 3D looking things. They looked really awesome and stuff. But then when they actually rolled out to Windows, they weren't anything like what they had shown off. They were basically flattened 2D versions of the emoji, and they looked terrible. And so people were upset. People complained. I believe it was gated as Emoji Gate or whatever it was.
Yes.
Microsoft sort of let a lot of people down there. And all these years later, they finally got around to actually building out a platform. I don't know what they had to do to make this happen, but they built out code that allows them to display the 3D emoji now in Windows. So when you open the emoji panel, you will actually see the 3D versions of those emoji they announced many moons ago. So well done, Microsoft, for finally getting around to do that. And there's also some changes to how Zunes are handled in Windows. Now, of course, Zune is an unsupported thing, so it's kind of notable that this is in here. But the changelog for this build says, we temporarily relaunched Zune.net last month. We also took the opportunity to fix an issue that was causing some challenges in getting the original Zune driver to install in Windows 11 with this build. So now it should be easier to use your, in brackets, totally unsupported and still discontinued Zune on Windows 11. So it's cool that they, I guess, fixed a driver or fixed how Windows was handling that driver for the Zune so you can still plug it in and get it working even though it's no longer technically supported. Microsoft didn't have to do that, but I guess they would look kind of hypocritical considering they used it as a marketing device for Guardians of the Galaxy 3. But there you are. And then lastly, the AI Hub, which Microsoft announced at Build in May, that is now rolling out to insiders in Dev and Canary. It's a little button in the sidebar in the Microsoft Store, which you click on it, and it basically is a collection of apps that Microsoft is aware that is using AI, whether that be via an NPU or GPU or cloud-based. It doesn't really matter, I don't think, as long as it's doing AI-related stuff. it will be collected into that hub for you to download and install. So that's pretty cool. And to my knowledge, that's all of the insider news of the week done and dusted.
Very neat, I suppose. The Emojigate stuff is hilarious. Yeah. That said, it goes to show you an example. Yeah, this is where, it looked like marketing. I think this is what happened. Kind of marketing got a little ahead of where the actual emoji team was at. And then what happened was it created that expectation of these really cool 3D emojis that really did look cool. They looked like little cartoons. They're highly detailed, a lot of shading and all that. I know this stuff is corny, and some people, and I understand this position, absolutely loathe and hate emojis and consider it very unprofessional to use. I get that position. That said, there's no denying that it's used more and more commonly. Even Microsoft Teams embraces it, and every messaging app that's out there has it. And of course, people use it in emails and social media. So, but I understand if you're reluctant to use it, but they are very popular, especially with the younger generations. And so having these sort of, again, the little things, right, in Windows. Nadella said, we want to make people love Windows again. It's these little things, though, that make Windows kind of cool to use for people and that they really appreciate. It's not always the big features like a new start menu. I guess, you can try with a new start menu, but I always say, new start menus are going to be controversial. No, whatever version they come out with, the last one was better is what ends up happening, even though everybody hated the last one because it was the new one. But these little things that they can do, like this emoji stuff, I think it's kind of neat. It's kind of nice. They can still do way more of these little things, of course, in Windows. I still think, I feel like we should mention it every podcast. They should just bring back Microsoft Messenger.
Yeah.
And just embrace these emojis in that, tie it to your Microsoft account. You log in, just like Telegram. It pulls in your contacts from Outlook if you want. Obviously, this is all optional. And you just have a thing in the taskbar where you can just direct message other Windows 11 users who are your friends and family, share files directly using OneDrive as the back end. If you want to make a video call with them, it's indirectly powered by Skype or Teams or whatever they want to power the back end, but it's all part of the same system. Like, I still feel like they can do this and make Windows more social, and that's where this emoji stuff comes in, right? It is about being more social and interacting with people. I still feel like they should do that, because imagine, right, they did the camera stuff. It leverages the new AI camera things where it blurs your background, and it's just like, it's not quite FaceTime, sorry.
Yeah.
It's not like exactly like FaceTime, because there's no mobile component for phones. What they could, right? Like, they could do all this in Windows 11. Hopefully people would use it, but it would be even cooler than if they make like an MS Messenger app. I don't know. It's probably too late. A lot of people would say it's too late to do that. Maybe. I don't know. Threads is kind of proving that if you have a lock-in base and allow people just to log in quickly with something, you can do it, right? Since our podcast last week, we're talking, they've crossed well over 100 million new users on Threads. And a lot of people are like, well, they're not really new users, they're Instagram users. I'm like, that's the point.
Yeah.
And not only that, it is an accomplishment because people had to go out and download the app 100 million times. Like, that's really hard to do within like a couple of days to get people to do that. And Microsoft has a pretty large install base with Windows 11, so they could easily kind of leverage that, come out with an app for Android and iOS. I don't know. Like, I still feel like they can kind of do this stuff, but that's just me. I don't know. It's not my money to spend, I suppose. Anyway, let's move on. Do you have any thoughts on any of that before we?
No, not really. That's basically all the news and stuff out of Windows. Real quick, I do want to quickly thank this week's sponsor, Indeed, once again sponsoring, so thank you for that. When it comes to hiring, don't wait for the great talent to find you. Find them first with Indeed. When you're hiring, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform you can attract, interview, and hire in one place. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills, Indeed is a powerful hiring platform that can help you do it all. They streamline hiring with powerful tools that find you matched candidates, and with Instant Match, over 80% of employers can get quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job, according to Indeed data. One of the things we think is pretty cool about Indeed is that it gets you one step closer to the hire by immediately matching you with quality candidates. Even better, Indeed is an unbelievably powerful hiring platform, delivering 4 times more hires than all job sites combined, according to Talent Nest. So join more than 3 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. To start hiring now, you can start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/WCP. That offer is only good for a limited time. Claim your $75 credit right now at Indeed.com/WCP. Just go to Indeed.com/WCP to support the show. Tell them you heard it here from us. Indeed.com/WCP. Terms and conditions do apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Thank you, Indeed, for sponsoring. And now onto a topic we've kind of been avoiding for a while at this point. But at this point, we have to talk about it. Xbox versus the FTC. Dan, have you been following this story?
Yeah. Surprisingly, I have a little bit. So for those who don't know, of course, I guess we should get up a little context. So
Yeah.
Microsoft is attempting to buy, I don't know how anyone has not heard of this, Activision Blizzard,
Right.
I believe for 68, or is it $69 billion? It's going to be one of the largest acquisitions in tech history. It's dwarfs Nokia's $7 billion, I believe that was. And I believe LinkedIn was in the 20s. So this is a really, really massive deal. Sony has pushed back on it, claiming that despite that they're number one by a mile, this Microsoft deal may not threaten their number oneness, but may make Microsoft a number 2 behind like Nintendo, which is still kind of really funny. But then before this deal has to go through, of course, governmental agencies around the planet need to approve it. The United States, the UK, European Union, which used to be the same agency until the UK broke off. Of course, China and other markets and here and there. Most markets have signed off on it, no problems. The 2 holdouts have been the UK and the United States. The United States has taken a abnormally aggressive position on this, and the FTC gets involved. And the argument, of course, is that this is going to cause a monopoly because they're going to purchase one of the largest game publishers around, which is true. But it's not so much that they're purchasing them, it's just that they would do things like prevent Sony from getting Call of Duty or other top tier names. So in response to that, Microsoft signed, put out a 10-year agreement saying everybody gets Call of Duty, no questions asked, and we can even extend that. And Satya Nadella even went on record when asked about exclusivity, saying, listen, that's mostly a Sony thing. They're the one who really started pushing the exclusivity thing. We don't like it. If they stop doing exclusive deals with games, we'll stop doing exclusive deals. And that is very much in Nadella's wheelhouse, right? He just believes in kind of competing on the back end product and meeting people where they are. And that's the big shift from what Ballmer was doing, where everything was supposed to be Microsoft and Microsoft only. So the FTC, challenged the whole merger, and then let's see what happened. They challenged it. It went through sort of like a hearing, but there wasn't anything definitive. And then coming up, the deal is supposed to close real soon, like within the coming days. And so they kind of waited to the last minute, and then they filed a lawsuit, an injunction to block the deal. And they knew that, like, in doing so, they could really trip this up, because if it goes past the close dates, Microsoft is on the hook for $3 billion, whether or not they, if they don't ever finish the deal, they'll have to pay $3 billion to Blizzard. And, that's an unfortunate pain. But that's what happens in merger deals, right? The idea is like everybody's going through all this pain to get this cleared, but if you can't do it, you owe the other company money, because in theory that company could have gone to a different suitor, someone else to buy it, and they would have closed the deal and not have wasted the time. So that's why that happens. So they waited to the last minute. Microsoft was actually kind of excited about this injunction idea, which was kind of hilarious because it meant that they get an immediate trial, basically, an appearance before a judge, and versus dragging out what could have gone on even longer. So what happened was the FTC, though, was confident that they could get this injunction. And then in Microsoft, if they appealed it or something like that, it wouldn't work. And what ended up happening was the FTC got their butts handed to them just this week, where the judge came down and not only sided with Microsoft, but was pretty harsh on the FTC, where they said things like, basically, you gave no concrete theory about how their purchase would damage anyone in this industry, which is what everybody's been saying, right? Because Microsoft's not in a monopoly position in gaming. They're like a distant third behind Nintendo and Sony. And this deal at best may knock them closer to number two, but they're still. And during the trial, all this information came out supporting what we all kind of knew. Sony was way further ahead in terms of sales of consoles than Microsoft was. You know, Microsoft effectively lost that console war. That goes all the way back with the Xbox One and Kinect and that whole thing. But so they won the court case, and they won it definitively. So that was cool, and things were looking up. In fact, Activision Blizzard was going to be delisted from the stock exchange because they were no longer going to exist as a single entity. They were going to fall under Microsoft, and that's still apparently going forward. So like everybody's moving forward on this in terms of closing. Then at the last minute, the FTC said, no, we're going to appeal that decision, which is their right, despite the fact the chances of them winning an appeal are slim to none, because the judge gave no real wiggle room in their decision. So, you know, if you do an appeal is basically, it's not that you don't like the decision and you want someone else to hear it. I know that's sort of the common perception, but to have a legitimate appeal, it has to be some sort of error that was done during the trial, something that was overlooked, the judge didn't handle appropriately, or the judge ignored an argument, or there was something about the case where there was a flaw in it through the system, and you deserve another hearing for the evidence to get heard. If you can't demonstrate that, you know, like say in a murder trial, you have to show that like the prosecutors had DNA evidence that would have, freed my client, and they withheld it. Like that's ground for a retrial, right? Because there was information withheld. If they could demonstrate that, that's where they get things reheard. Doesn't even mean it'll still favor them. It just means they can go. But in this case, there really doesn't seem to be any wiggle room for them to appeal this decision, because the judge didn't say like, had you just done this, right, I maybe would have seen it. Or if you brought this point up, or you gave us this information, I might have changed my decision. If there was that, sure, but that's not the case. And then what happened was Congress, specifically the House of Representatives, the Oversight Committee, dragged the FTC, specifically the chair, Linda Khan, in front of the public. Now, like these things are always partisan. So this is mostly, I don't know if it was a Republican-led committee. Yeah, it was a Republican-led committee because Republicans control the House now. So like this happens every administration where someone in the House doesn't like what because Khan is appointed by the Democrats and President Biden specifically. So it's just a way to score cheap shots. In this case, however, there is some legitimate concern over Khan's background and behavior in this, in the sense that they flat out asked, like, are you bringing cases, antitrust cases, to the courts knowing like it's a long shot basically that you would lose? And of course it was kind of a rhetorical thing, but she of course said, oh, of course not. And then one of the representatives even asked, like, why are you appealing this decision when there's really no evidence, as what I just went through, that you're going to win or have any sort of momentum here with an appeal, considering, because what an appeals court's going to do is the first thing they're going to do is look at the previous judge's decision and go through it and check to see that the judge did everything correctly and heard all the evidence and treated both clients fairly. If the appeals court sees that and they're just like, yeah, no, everything was done by the numbers, it's a straightforward case, that was the decision made, the appeals court doesn't hear it or it gets rejected. But this costs taxpayer money. This is all costing taxpayer money, right? Because they're pursuing this case. So she was grilled on YouTube, and it was broadcasted live. And like I said, a lot of this is done for dramatic effects, like what we did, right? We posted a clip of her getting grilled, and that's kind of what they wanted. Now, some of it's just because she's a Democrat or is appointed by a Democrat, and they're Republicans, and they don't like Biden, and it goes back and forth. If it was if Trump was in power, they would be doing the same thing if the Democrats controlled the House, right? So it's not that unusual. Some of the arguments were definitely unnecessary / personal, like they brought up the fact that she's not in good standing with the Bar Association in New York, even though she's in D.C. And it's like, okay, these are little technicalities, but when she applied for the job and she had to be like approved by the House, they had all the information about her. So it's kind of like you can't kind of go back now, but they were just trying to take kind of cheap shots at her. So there is that. But there's a legitimate thing here, right? Almost every other nation except the UK said, yeah, go ahead. We're fine with this. And we don't even need that much concessions. Or the concessions that Microsoft was proactively delivering were good enough to satisfy a lot of these countries. Now, the UK is also another problem. In theory, they could just be not count the UK, and basically they would be cut off from say cloud gaming for Xbox. But and the UK was pretty much like, we made our decision and that's that. And there was probably some I don't know if there's a lot of evidence for this, so I'm speculating here, but a little bit of collusion between the United States and UK on this. But now the UK has wavered a little bit and saying that they're kind of open to some more grounds for more ground that Microsoft could concede to make them happy, to appease them, basically, whether that's extending deals or something.
I think it came out today that one of the concessions that are sort of being discussed in regards to Microsoft and the CMA is Microsoft might sell off its cloud gaming service to a telecommunications company in the UK only. And the rumor is EE may be in conversation. So EE in the UK is like AT&T or Verizon. They're a carrier essentially in the UK. And so maybe Microsoft might sell off its sort of cloud gaming services to them, and so they're in charge of it here and stuff, and that could be a way around it. I don't know how that benefits Microsoft. I genuinely have no idea, but that's one of the discussions that are apparently being had in regards to the CMA.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. I think they're going to close this. I think they're going to get through, just because both UK and United States do not have good arguments for the cases they're trying to bring. They just don't. Yeah. And Microsoft has been very open, very conciliatory. They've proactively offered deals to all these companies. It doesn't benefit them. I know this argument is well, Microsoft is a distant third and they're going to own Call of Duty, therefore they're going to withhold Call of Duty from Sony. Then Sony's going to crash and burn as a company. No, that won't happen at all. First of all, Sony's going to keep doing what they do, which is paying a ton of money to studios to make exclusive games for Sony that will never, ever go to PC or Xbox. And they've had a lot of wins doing that. There's a lot. I mean, that's been the joke for the last, 8 years. Halo, Gears of War, have all fallen to the wayside. They're still cool and all this, but they're not these flagship titles that make you go buy an Xbox. Forza's still doing really well. Amazing studio behind them. So they got that, which is way better than what Sony has. But for the most part, Sony's been crushing them. They've been getting Spider-Man. They got, Horizon game, God of War. They just have so many titles that they've been... And that's what they want. They want the best of both, right? They want everything, but also to keep all their exclusive stuff. And that's what Microsoft basically conceded to them. It's all right, you can still have everything and still do your exclusive games. But it's not like if Microsoft even did decide to withhold Call of Duty that it would sink Sony. Not even close to that. So it's kind of a lame argument. There's no evidence this would hurt Sony. All it would do was give Microsoft a little bit of a chance to crawl up from position number 3 because Nintendo is also big, right? So that's where it is. I think it'll close. I think the FTC is going to cave at this. It'll be interesting to see if the appeal goes through or what happens. I think they're just going to go ahead and try to close the deal anyway, because as of now, they need to have an appeal. But Microsoft's very confident about this, right? They know they're on the right side. They've proven their case. They showed all the data. Like, they feel very strongly this is going to go through. And I think it will. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Yeah, someone mentioned 5 days is when it has to close. Yeah, we'll see what happens in 5 days if they actually just, close it out. So
I think going back into the trial or whatever it was that they were having, it's always fascinating to see. Because a lot of the times with these trials, there's a lot of internal communication and conversations that took place between executives and employees come out that they're revealed as evidence for somebody's claim. And obviously that was no different here with this trial. We saw internal emails and presentations from Microsoft, we saw some from Sony, even some from sort of top end game development studios and publishers, and even I think Nintendo as well. Lots of things were revealed. Things like how much Sony spent on Horizon Dawn 2 and The Last of Us 2, how many employees there were, budgets for the games and stuff, which was quite fascinating. But there was also some revelations on the Xbox side, like how in 2019 the vocabulary around the console wars, if you will, was a lot more fierce versus today, which is where they're a lot more open. They're much more open. 2019, of course, Xbox would want to destroy Sony. But obviously today they can't say things like that and whatnot. But they're not Xbox related. There was some sort of presentation that was revealed as part of this where one of the slides mentioned a plan to roll out Windows 365 for consumers, sort of turn Windows into an ambient thing that people could stream from any device. And that's not hugely surprising. Windows 365 already exists as an enterprise service. So it's not a surprise to hear that they're looking at ways of turning that into a consumer thing as well, because I think it's fair to say consumers these days are relying on Windows less and less for personal reasons. I'm sure they use it all for work and stuff. And Windows for work is never going to go away. But a lot of normal people these days only need an iPad or even just a smartphone. They don't need a full-blown Windows thing. So turning Windows into something that's streamed from the cloud means that you can have Windows apps running anywhere. And Microsoft wins no matter what, because you're paying them for a subscription service for access to a Windows OS that can run Windows apps no matter the device. So they're most certainly looking into Windows 365 for consumers, and that I think is something we're going to see in the next couple of years. And then there was just lots of other interesting tidbits and details that came out from the hearing that you can go out and look at yourself. But overall, the deal is, I guess they're going to try and move to close the deal, as you said. The FTC did lose its injunction, so what a waste of everybody's time.
Yeah, I mean, there's that kind of truth to it, right? So, but I think they'll prevail. Someone was mentioning that they could still close, and at the most FTC can just try to find them post hoc. But I think the appeal is just going to be rejected. I don't think they're going to have any opportunity to make the case that they need an appeal, and I think the deal will close in the United States. I think they'll solve the UK issue, and then that's it. We'll go from there. And then hopefully we'll get Diablo 4 on Game Pass. That's all I really kind of care about. Actually, there's two things I care about that someone brought up, and I forgot I was either on Threads or Twitter, which was, get Diablo 4 onto Game Pass would be awesome. And then also get rid of Battle.net. So if you don't know Battle.net is the proprietary Blizzard software that you download, and then it allows you access to your games, which you can. It's like the Steam client, but it's Blizzard. So if you end up having, if you do Steam and Epic and Blizzard, you end up having 3 clients running just to get all your games. It's not anything that's inherently bad with the software. It's just more software you have to install. It'd be cooler if all of a sudden those games then appear in your Xbox library, so you have one less thing to have to install on your devices, including things like the Asus ROG Ally, which would be kind of nice. So we should mention some breaking news.
Go on.
Which is Major Nelson, aka Larry Hibb, is leaving Microsoft and Xbox after 20 years.
Wow, he was like the face of Xbox for a while.
Yeah, there goes my argument that they should have made me the face of Surface. I could be the Major Nelson of Surface. Yeah, that argument's now gone. He says, after 20 incredible years, I've decided to take a step back work on the next chapter of my career. As I take a moment and think about all we have done together, I want to thank the millions of gamers around the world who have included me as part of their lives. Also, thanks to the Xbox team members for trusting me to have a direct dialogue with our customers. The future is bright for Xbox, and as a gamer, I am excited to see the evolution. Thanks, and I'll see you online. He's still, of course, staying on Twitter, and his DMs are open, and he'll be, I'm sure, sharing what's he doing next. Says he has a few projects that he's working on, so really interesting. But yeah, I mean, he's been the face of Xbox, and he says also the podcast is going on hiatus for the summer, but will come back in a new format, probably I guess in the fall. So, but yeah, he's been the face of Xbox and interacting with the gaming community and all that for many years. I don't know if they will replace him.
Yeah, I'll be curious. I mean, they just announced a new wave of layoff this past week as well. I don't know if he was laid off. Maybe he was cut.
No, but wasn't that only like 230 people, and that was in customer support? Like,
no, I think it extended further than that.
Sales.
I think it extended a bit further than that. I don't know the specifics of it, but yeah, no, it definitely did, because I know of a few people who were let go in other areas, but. Yeah, I don't know if Larry was let go. I doubt it. Maybe he's just moving on. I don't know, but I guess
it could have been one of those things where they're like, "Listen, Larry, we've think about going in a different direction here." I'm sure he's paid a lot.
Yeah.
And I could see some people saying, we don't really need that kind of position anymore in this day and age. It's not like Sony has a version of that, as far as I know. That said. Yeah, I mean, he's legacy in the terms of like he's just been that person and identified for so long with the brand. It is something to have that person leave. So it could have been a combination of both of those things. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Who knows? It's always interesting when people are like, oh, I decided to go try new things. It's like sometimes I can see that. But you would have thought like you just really love this job and like.
Yeah, I mean, if I was him, I would never leave that job. But that's my job until I die.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. We'll see what happens though with that. But best of luck to Larry.
Real quick, just another thing I wanted to mention in regards to the FTC hearing. There was a point where Phil Spencer had to take the stand and was asked questions and stuff. And I don't remember the exact quote now, but he was asked a question about mobile app stores, because that's another aspect to this, right? Microsoft is acquiring Activision because they want to build out their games library so they can launch their own game store on mobile platforms, or app store in general, which will include lots of games. And so obviously at some point Phil Spencer was being quizzed by that, and I thought it was quite interesting because as he's talking, he mentions the mobile app store being for Windows Phone before correcting himself as just generally mobile platforms. And obviously that was I got a bunch of tweets on Twitter because I didn't do it, but apparently you could tune in and listen to the hearing as it was happening. So a bunch of people tweeted me saying, Zach, Phil Spencer just mentioned Windows Phone. But if you actually listen back to it, it's clear that he makes an error. Now, does he make an error because he genuinely made an error, or does he make an error because he's been told that Windows Phone's coming back and that he's not allowed to talk about it yet? I'm going to guess it's not Windows Phone coming back and that he just made an error. But I think it was interesting that was on his mind nonetheless. But that's all I have to add to the story of the FTC.
Great. Sorry, I'm just trying to do a thread while we're doing this live. All right, well, I guess that kind of wraps it up, believe it or not, for the podcast.
Yeah.
That's coming in under an hour here. That's good because I still have a ton of work to do. So,
yeah, I guess we've got thing of the week, right? Well, did you have a thing of the week?
Yeah, we can do thing of the week. Yep.
All right, I'll go first, I guess. My thing of the week then is Apple TV Plus show. I feel like Apple TV Plus is #1 fan. I love everything they make. Everything I watch, I sit down like, this is a good show. Another one that's currently airing weekly. I do hate that streaming services are doing this now, where they do it weekly. It's like, stop doing things weekly. Yeah. Just let me binge
the old school ways.
yeah. Netflix knows this. Just let me binge it. But no, there's a show called Hijack currently airing on Apple TV Plus, starring oh no, what's his name? The Luther guy. What's his damn name? Hang on. Luther actor. Let's see. What's his name? Idris Elba, of course. Starring Idris Elba and a bunch of other people. But yes, it's basically about a plane that gets hijacked on its way back from Abu Dhabi, I want to say, on its way to London. And I think there's 3 or 4 episodes out right now. One of those sort of highly intense thriller sort of programs. But yeah, I've been thoroughly enjoying it so far. It's a little bit unrealistic in regards to what you would assume would happen if a plane were to be hijacked in this form in the 21st century. In reality, the thing would be shot down. But somehow this plane, we're 4 episodes in, we're about 4 or 5 hours into the flight, and nobody has shot it down yet. So they're doing well to survive. But yes, great show, recommend.
I don't even know if we ever finished that show that was on Netflix with that plane and the world's ending. Remember that one?
Oh yeah, Into the Night.
Yeah.
Yeah, I finished that. They did 2. They had 2 seasons of that. You must have finished the first season.
Yeah, we did. I think we started watching the second season.
So they've done. Funny enough, I only found this out recently. They've done 2 seasons of that, and they've now done a spin-off season set in the same apocalypse, but it's about people in a submarine, and apparently it ties in to the end of the second season.
Yes. So the second season premiered on September 8, 2021, while a Turkish language submarine set spin-off, Yakamaz S245, was released on April 2022.
Yep. I had no idea they'd released that spin-off, so I'm actually going to watch that next, I think.
Let's see. Reception. In the week of its opening, the series was reported to be the 3rd most watched non-English TV series on Netflix. That's all they have. Yeah, well, let's go both watch that and come back. I will say Zach talked about the platform last week.
Yes.
And I finally got to watch it. It was fine. It's definitely it was one of those, like, it was definitely a creative idea.
Yeah.
It was done pretty well. And he didn't quite
movie.
know where it was going. I didn't quite love the ending, but I kind of liked the ideas they touched upon. It was an interesting concept. I just think they could have been a little bit better. It is definitely not for the faint of heart. There's a lot of violence in that one, but I actually got pretty hungry watching it. Because if you're wondering why that's funny, it's because the movie's about, like, well, it's all about eating to survive. It's worth a watch, though. It's definitely an interesting idea, that's for sure.
It's not a long film.
Just been a little better.
It's not long. It's an easy watch, I think. Yeah.
And then, in memory of Alan Arkin, who passed away last week, I believe it was last week or 2 weeks ago. He's a famous American actor who I just adored. I started going through some of his other films, and so we watched Wait Until Dark. So this is going old school. So this is 1967, with Audrey Hepburn in it, and Richard Crenna was in it too, who was, I believe, later played in Rambo, the older major guy that talked to Rambo. And it's a cool movie. It's a psychological thriller and Audrey Hepburn's a blind woman. She's in an apartment, and these guys, they're thieves, and they're looking for something. And it's kind of like a play, because it mostly, like, 95% of it happens in this apartment, which is really kind of cool. It's always a challenge when you make a movie that has, like, a single set and only basically 4 people who are, like, in the movie, and make that interesting, because you're relying a lot, of course, on dialogue as well as intrigue and all that kind of stuff. But it was a cool movie. I mean, it was really, really cool. And Alan Arkin was great in it. It was fun to see him younger. And I haven't really watched much with Audrey Hepburn in it. And that was cool to see her. She was quite the looker. I don't know if you guys heard about this. She is very pretty. So I will say that. But yeah, you can rent that movie, Wait Until Dark. I highly recommend it, though. It's one of those things we joke around my SO, like, I'll bring up these old movies from, like, the 50s and 60s, and you look at them, the title, and they may be black and white. This one was color, and you read the description, and you're like, I don't know. There's this apocalypse thing going on Netflix, right? But I'm like, I think this movie was like 97% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's like, and it's like, everybody says it's amazing. And you're like, I know I should watch it. And then you watch it and you're like, yeah, that was actually pretty amazing. You know, it's just like, it's so hard to convince yourself, though, to even go through that. I mean, I think my best friend still hasn't seen The Godfather, which I'm just still like, we need to sit and, like, or at least he hasn't seen it all the way through, you know, just at least watch part 1 and part 2. But yeah, sometimes going through and watching those old stuff is actually pretty awesome. I still like. You still haven't seen what is it, Day of the Triffids, Night of the Triffids?
Don't think so, no.
They remade that like 3 times already. So Triffid. If you look up Triffid, um, the Day of the Triffids. That's a cool movie. It's a British movie. It was based on a novel. Let's see how many. Yeah, if you just type in Day of the Triffids, and you can rent it at various places. All 3 of them I watch, and all 3 are cool because they're all different takes. It's about killer plants. That's all I need to say. It's like killer plants. I think it involves space somehow. I believe they eat people and can move around. And you may think that sounds corny and stupid, but it's awesome. Like, I love stuff like that. Kind of like War of the Worlds, the original one, is still one of my favorite movies. The Blob. Actually, we're joking because it was on my birthday. My girlfriend was like, what do you want to do? You want to watch something? I'm like, Top Gun and The Blob. And then it dawned on me, those have to be my 2 favorite movies because they just came out of my head. And I don't mean they're amazing cinema, although they are kind of amazing cinema. But they're just like 2 movies I just thoroughly enjoy rewatching over and over again because I just think they're just great. And mostly because I guess they're things I grew up watching in my childhood. But Night of the Triffids or Day of the Triffids, go watch those. Like I said, they remade it 3 times. They're all pretty awesome. And it's about killer plants. And if you like sci-fi and intrigue, that's great. And then Wait Until Dark if you want a psychological thriller, which has a pretty exciting ending, I have to admit. So good stuff. All right, we'll stick around and do Q&A with the audience if there's anyone that does have questions. Otherwise, we'll return next week. You can follow me on Twitter, Daniel_Rubino, Rubino, on Twitter and on Threads. Turns out, we were just talking about this before, actually. Not only does Threads have more, it's getting a lot of followers, there's way more interaction on Threads that all of us are noticing, meaning people are interacting with us way more, whereas on Twitter, it's been kind of dead lately. So I prefer to use Threads and more switch over there. But if you're on Twitter and refuse to change, I understand that. That's cool. Just message me on Twitter. Follow Zach at ZACBOWDEN as well. He's both on Twitter and on Threads too. As always, thanks for listening. We do record this live every Friday, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time on our YouTube channel, Windows Central. You can join in and watch the live broadcast and join the chat. And if not, get to listen to this recorded. As always, thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time. Take care, everyone.
Great stuff. So yes, if you have any questions, now's the time to put them in the chat. We'll hang around and do our best to answer them. Somebody's asking, hello guys, great show. Thank you for the $10, by the way, Scott Gamer Dude.
Yes.
Just bought Surface Laptop Studio. Wonderful device. I want to upgrade the hard drive. I saw some videos. Do you guys personally know anyone that has done it? Please advise. No, I don't know anyone who's done it themselves, but it is now a thing you can do yourself. I believe iFixit has the instructions. You can get the tools from them as well. And then Microsoft even sells the components if you're in a region. I think the US and somewhere else. Yeah, so you can go to the Microsoft store and you can actually buy what you need to do the replacement. So you can buy the SSD itself. And I think you can also buy a replacement sort of strip that hides the screws under the keyboard deck, because you will have to pull that off to get into the actual base. But yeah, you can do it. Just follow a guide, because I think trying to do it on your own, you might break it. I think LTT tried to upgrade his in his original review, and he ended up breaking his because he didn't know how to take it apart. So make sure you follow instructions.
Scott Gamer Dude just says, I loved Alan Arkin in Little Miss Sunshine. Yeah, that was a legendary role for him. Absolutely hilarious. There's just some amazing dialogue. He was just great. He was just one of those, there was no one else like him. And he has such a long career, just in so many great movies. And he did serious stuff well, drama, but he was also incredibly hilarious just in his delivery. He was actually in Gattaca, which I mentioned a couple weeks ago, as just watching that. And that's a great movie. He's in that too and has a great role. So, yeah, he'll be missed. People
asking about Duo news. There is none. And there probably won't be for this year. So, yeah.
Couple of people chiming in saying that they've stopped using Twitter as well. Yeah, it's I shared a video internally with our group this morning. It was just me scrolling my Twitter feed, and what was interesting was just all brands. and I'm using my Twitter hack, right? So I'm just viewing who I follow, not recommendations, and in chronological order. And I screen recorded it, and all it was brands and publications auto posting. All the humans I follow, there were no humans tweeting. It was weird. But then when I went over to Threads, they were literally all over there just using it normally. Like, I mean, it's the first time I've actually ever seen this happen. Like, it's like kind of like a ghost town. It's really kind of weird. I mean, I'm glad, because it seems like, this may actually hold. We still got a long time to go for that. But yeah, I'm telling you, Twitter is, I think the blue checks will stick around, but that's a unique group themselves, so we'll see.
Not to take away from Scott Gaberdu's joy, but any word on an updated version of the Surface Laptop Studio coming out this fall or next spring? Yes, the Surface Laptop Studio 2, to my knowledge, is locked in for this fall. Intel 13th Gen, RTX 40 series, and some other improvements, I guess. Yeah, it's mostly going to be a spec bump. The design, to my knowledge, is the same. The screen size is the same. There's no 16-inch model. But it will have the more recent specs and some... Okay, I can't talk about everything yet, but yeah, there's some stuff coming with it that's quite interesting. An improved haptic touchpad, I hear, is coming, Dan, which will excite you greatly.
Oh, wait. On Laptop Studio?
Yeah. On Natural Studio 2.
But it already has a haptic track.
It's yes, it's getting an improved one apparently.
Oh yeah, okay. I know what that is. Yeah. Sentinel's been working on some really new technology. What was this? Anything similar to Windows Aero coming? Not just Aero Glass, but also in its icons. I doubt it, but that's where StarDock, I would say, third-party software comes into play. Don't they have stuff that kind of does that?
Yeah.
Yeah, go to StarDock. I believe they have a bunch of software that you can like make your start menu look like, I think, any previous version of Windows. I don't know if it would change all your icons, but yeah, maybe. Do you think Microsoft could grow their own film studio like Netflix or Apple to put into Game Pass?
Nope.
They could. They have the
won't.
money. They won't. And I wouldn't want them to. I don't think they can execute it. They're just no Apple in this regard.
Yeah.
Apple's been pretty amazing in how it goes to show you too, right? It's really hard and even despite what Zach was saying with Apple having really amazing content, it's true, but it's not like Apple TV has been growing massively.
Yeah.
It really hasn't, because people are kind of fatigued with subscribing to services. I think a better position would be if they could forge deals with existing platforms, just like EA Game Pass, or the EA games appearing in Game Pass. I don't know how that would work, but yeah, maybe Paramount Plus, some of their prestige shows show up in Game Pass, and there's like a media version or something like that. Possibly, right? I think that would be a better route for them, and more realistic routes versus them doing their own studio. I just absolutely do not see that happening.
Yeah. Is there any news about... Is there any chance of us seeing a Surface Pro 10 this year, and what specs would it have? To my knowledge, no. I do not think we're getting a Surface Pro 10 this fall, and I'm actually now starting to hear that we might not even be getting a Surface Laptop 6. I know I said originally that might be on the cards, but that I think is also being pushed back to next year.
I think, and to be honest, I hate to say it, kind of makes sense in the way that I don't think the laptop PC market, it's recovering. It hasn't recovered to the level that I think they feel comfortable launching a new product. And like you said, like they've been doing even more layoffs. And I would imagine the laptop 6 and whatever other devices, those launch frames are contingent upon them clearing out old stock of stuff first.
Yeah, not only
and
that.
And if they haven't sufficiently cleared that out,
Yeah. Also, with the sort of upcoming push of AI stuff, I think they might want to wait for a chip that can handle AI stuff better from, I guess, Intel as well as Qualcomm. So
yeah, so Intel's 14th gen, what we're calling 14th gen, but could very well be first gen new chips will have an AI component to them.
Right.
So they may want to wait for that.
And
Yeah.
those won't be ready in time for October, to my knowledge. And if they are, they won't be ready in
No.
time for manufacture in a line of devices. So,
yeah, we'll be hearing more about them soon. But you're right. There's no way you'll start to see, I believe, those chips ship in spring.
Yeah, and that is when I'm hearing we might see the next Pro and laptop. So that lines up, I think.
Because Intel typically does desktop first, then mobile. So we'll see.
Yeah. Will Hudson Valley become Windows 12 or something more creative like Windows AI? Silly name I came up with on the fly. Which is more probable? I don't know. This is all marketing. From a technical perspective, yes, Microsoft could release the next sort of Windows platform release next year as a new product. That's entirely up to them to do. But at the same time, they might not. It might be another Windows 11 update. Everyone has sort of clung onto this Windows 12 branding because chronologically it makes sense. Especially with them going back to a 3-year sort of release cycle for new versions of the Windows platform for client. But that's something Microsoft probably doesn't actually know for sure yet as well. Whether it will be Windows 12 or Windows 11 or Windows something or other. We might hear more close to the time, but at this point, it's a mystery.
Will G-Sync improve a game that never gets above 60 frames per second? Well, it could help with tearing and those kind of issues, but that presupposes your graphics card is just so underpowered that even 60 frames per second is a challenge. But for the most part, I would say it helps with higher frame rates than 60 frames. But I'm not an expert on that stuff, so. Surface webcam.
Yeah, any chance to do Surface webcam this fall? To my knowledge, no. I've not heard that that's a thing currently. Progress is slow enough these days that I think the best value proposition is grab stuff on the resale market. By the time the Surface Pro 10 comes out, a used Surface Pro 8 bundle will be $500. Yeah, I mean the Pro 8 and the Pro 9 are both amazing, and obviously the Pro 8 is serious value for money. I think with Intel 11th Gen, Intel Iris graphics, it's a great mini 2-in-1 sort of PC. Obviously, you're going to start seeing a discrepancy in regards to AI stuff. I think as Intel announces its AI sort of chip set or whatever it is that joins their chips and whatnot, as well as AMD and obviously Qualcomm's already doing it. You will probably start, especially with Windows air quotes 12 coming next year, there will begin to be a feature differentiator between devices that currently have no dedicated AI processor and ones that do. It won't be a huge gap at first, but over the next few years, I think it will get bigger and bigger and bigger, and Windows will become more capable on PCs with an AI chip versus without. Any new Surface accessories this fall? Maybe. I mean, I don't know. If we're getting a new Surface Go this fall, there will probably be some updated type covers for it, I suppose. Other than that, or a new pen maybe. But other than that, I don't know. I don't know. What chair do you have, Zach? This is I'm currently using the, I don't know how to pronounce the name, Saihu Doro C300. Very nice chair. I enjoy it. Is the Surface Dial dead? Yes, I think it's probably dead. Oh, to be fair, it's not really something they need to update. It does what it does.
Yeah.
I don't think they sell them anymore. I don't think they make them. But if you have one, I mean, it will work on Windows 11. They've just updated the settings.
It's a collector item.
Yeah.
It's like a Surface Duo 2. Sell it for $4,000.
Yeah. Right.
All right.
Final call for questions. If there's none left, we're going to say goodbye. Are we expecting a Surface event this year, and will there be any new form factors? Well, as we just discussed, yes, we're expecting a handful of new Surface devices this fall. Whether it be an event or a press release, no idea. But no new form factors are expected. It's going to be a refresh to the Surface Go, a refresh to the Surface Laptop Go, and a refresh to the Surface Studio 2, or Surface Studio. So there you are. Not very exciting, but this year has been a bit of a slow year for Surface. I think with the layoffs and Microsoft sort of tightening its belt around projects and stuff, they've been a lot more conservative as to what they want to release this year. They don't want to release stuff that will make money because they need to look good to the board and everybody when they present their financials. Any idea on the timeline for Windows 12 features for the Canary Channel? You likely won't see any UI stuff until next year. When you know how you didn't see Windows 11 until Microsoft were ready to show it to you, even though you were testing the Windows 11 platform for about a year, maybe longer. The same is going to happen here. You'll be testing a bunch of underlying stuff from now until maybe June next year, and then Microsoft will hold an event, and then a week later you'll have a new build that has all of the new UI stuff and consumer-facing features. All right, with that, we are going to head off. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll be back next Friday. Follow us on Twitter. We keep you updated when we go live. But until then, we will see you next time. Bye-bye.